Namaste, nerds. It's Navana, Budget Pub Stomper, and today we've got a bit of a public service announcement. I see that a lot of people are building. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Eminem, Imamanan. I did try to pronounce it. This is a jellyfish advisor. This is Reality's Mama, Budget Edition. That's a reference to the OG jellyfish, the reality chip. And the deck is gonna play pretty similar to the reality chip, but we're gonna get to that in a second. I told you this was a public service announcement, and let me explain that. I'm seeing a lot of people building this mono blue baddie, and no wonder, she's crazy. So this is a jacked commander, but I'm seeing everybody kind of go about it the same way, and I'm gonna call it the wrong way, where they're just trying to jam a bunch of 0 and 1 mana artifacts that are able to scry and shuffle and like search through this many cards and find. They're trying to storm off, and then they're either assembling some kind of a win condition once they've essentially drawn their entire deck or put their entire deck in play, or they are trying to finish with some sort of a storm payoff, like Mind's Desire. That's wrong. We're not going to be doing that. I mean, maybe time will tell that I'm actually in the wrong here, but I don't know. I built a version of that deck. I saw what people were doing. I think that was the first thing that came to my mind also. The problem is if you're using this card advantage engine as a card advantage engine just to put a bunch of bad cards into play, and all the cards you're drawing are bad cards, then the card advantages you're getting doesn't matter very much. And there's just easier ways to empty your entire library. Plus, you've got to play lands. I don't think that's the way to go with the deck. So, public service announcement. Don't build it that way, build it this way. So, how are we building it? Well, let's talk about the commander first. Imamanan. It's Manan. That's it. It's Mom. It's the reality chip's mother. This is Mamanan, the right hand of the reality chip. This is a legendary creature, a jellyfish advisor. It advises to the jellyfish. See? Makes sense. It is a 3/4 flyer for 5 mana, mono blue. It says you can look at the top card of your library at any time, and you can cast artifact spells from the top of your library. So it's we've got lots of versions of that effect. In fact, some of them have been popping up in my most recent deck techs, kind of, I think coincidentally. I don't know, maybe Wizards has some sort of a cast artifacts from the top of your deck conspiracy that I haven't caught on to yet, but as far as I can tell, it's just a happenstance. But then the next, so it's, you may look at the top card of your deck, you can cast artifact spells from the top of your library, and then artifacts you control have tap, add a blue mana, spend this mana only to cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand. So generally that is going to be from the top of your library, right? Okay, so what are we actually going to do? So, I mean, obviously there is going to be a card advantage aspect to this commander. It is going to generate some value. The value is only going to be as good as the artifacts that are in your deck, and it's going to have some mana advantage. So we're already kind of checking 2 of the boxes that I like to have in a competitive commander. It's at least a marginal mana engine, and it's at least a marginal card draw engine. But the main reason I want this card for my commander is really because, one, well, there's 2 more things. Like, one, it's a combo piece, so that's check, check, check. But then we've got a bonus box that we've checked off, is that it breaks parity on nasty stax effects. Okay, so I was building this deck, and the way that I thought about building the deck was, of course, first use all the artifacts to spew all the artifacts and then storm off, but that really wasn't getting us anywhere fast. And the thing costs 5 mana. So then take 2 was to use it as a Sensei's Divining Top combo piece. And so if you're not familiar with this type of combo, if you can cast artifacts from the top of your deck, then you can cast Sensei's Divining Top from the top of your deck. Sensei's Divining Top, you can use it to rearrange the top 3 cards of your library, which obviously has some synergy with the commander, but we're not really going to be using that bit with the commander because most of the time when we play this top with the commander out, we're going to just be trying to win the game. because of the second line of text, tap, draw a card, then put the top back on top of your library. Okay, so remember, the commander says we can cast the top from the top of our library because it's an artifact. Okay, so the top says we can tap it if it's in play to draw a card, and then we put the top on top of our library. So just automatically, if we have Jellyfish Mama and Sensei's Divining Top, then we just automatically have an engine that says pay 1 mana to draw 1 card. And it's a little bit better than that, because when you're casting or when you're playing out artifacts, you can tap those to pay for artifact cards that are on top of your deck. So that's all automatically kind of a little value engine. But again, we're not really looking at it through the lens of a value engine, because once we get the top, we just want to combine that with any of numerous effects. And I made sure to spread them out along various mana costs to really get the most bang for the buck out of my budget tutor suite. So we've got at 2 mana, Ethereum Sculptor. At 3 mana, Forensic Gadgeteer or Glaring Fleshraker or Foundry Inspector. At 4 mana, Joyrus Familiar. And then at 1 mana, we've got the top itself. So let's just take any one of these. And probably it'll be worth explaining at least a few of them, because they work on a slightly different axis. Like the Ethereum Sculptor and the Foundry Inspector both do the same thing. So let's just say we've got Mama, and we've got Ethereum Sculptor, and we've got Sensei's Divining Top. So now we're in a situation where we can cast the Divining Top off the top of our deck for free. It's 1 less mana. It's 1 mana, so it's 0 mana. We can cast it off the top for free. We can crack it to put it back on top to draw a card. And we can keep doing that, and we can draw our entire deck. The same thing is true of Foundry Inspector. But Forensic Gadgeteer doesn't do exactly that, right? This says, whenever you cast an artifact spell, Investigate, then activated abilities of artifacts cost 1 less to activate, and it can't reduce it below 1 mana. It might seem like that bottom bit is the part that's more similar to Ethereum Sculptor or Foundry Inspector, but that's actually not the part that we're using to go infinite with this setup. The top line of text, whenever you cast an artifact spell, you investigate, means that whenever you cast the top off the top of your library, you're going to make a clue token. Then you're going to be able to crack the top, putting it back on top of your library and drawing a card, and you can tap the clue token, which is an artifact, to produce a blue mana, which you'll use to cast Sensei's Divining Top off the top of your library. So it does kind of the same thing in a different sort of way, but Forensic Gadgeteer also works as a really nice value engine in a deck that has this many artifacts in it. Foundry Inspector works the same way as Ethereum Sculptor works. Glaring Fleshraker, I would say, is more similar to the Forensic Gadgeteer, but it's a little bit different, worth explaining. So for 3 mana, you get this Eldrazi drone that says whenever you cast a colorless spell, mind you, the Sensei's Divining Top is colorless, create a 0/1 colorless spawn that says sacrifice and add 1 colorless mana, which, as fortune would have it, is the cast cost of Sensei's Divining Top. Well, actually, it doesn't matter, because this is this an artifact? Create a 0/1 colorless. It's not an artifact, so it does matter. So in this case, you're going to have your Glaring Fleshraker and Mom in play. And I know there's maybe we should call this right-hand Mom. We'll call it Jellyfish Mama. Okay, so you're going to have Jellyfish Mama and Glaring Fleshraker in play. You'll find your top. There's lots of ways to get to the top in the deck. That's the main thing we're trying to do, in fact, is get to the top. So there's so much of all the other effects, and the main other effect is in the command zone. So the main thing you want to do in this deck is find the top. But if we've got Glaring Fleshraker in play, we've got the top, we've got Jelly Mama, then when we cast the Sensei's Divining Top off the top of the deck, we make a spawn token that we can sacrifice to create enough mana to cast the top again. So that puts us in that same exact loop that we're in with Forensic Gadgeteer or Ethereum Sculptor, in just a slightly different flavor. But there's one more, probably the most important, well, there's one more very important bit of text on this card. This says, whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. And so that means that once you've assembled the combo using Glaring Fleshraker, you can burn the table out. You can murder all of your opponents because every time you go through your crack the top, put it on top, crack the top, put it on top, so on and so forth, ad infinitum, you're going to be dealing 1 damage to each opponent every time you do that. So the best one to find is going to be Glaring Fleshraker. This is probably going to be the main win condition in the deck. The other win conditions in the deck are just going to be Laboratory Maniac Jace, Labjace. This is the one that just has the Laboratory Maniac effect. We're at $99.97, so I dare not switch this guy to his other printing. It's more. But this is the one that just says that if you draw from an empty library, you win the deck, or you win the game. And then it's got a +1 ability that's basically mill 2 cards and then draw. So this wins the game if you deck yourself, and it's a value engine. I did also include Laboratory Maniac proper in the deck. This is the most kind of dead card in the deck, so you actually could pull this and put something, I don't know, like another piece of interaction in the deck. But I found that the deck, as I've got it worked out right now, it seems to be working really well. And so I've decided just to leave this backup combo piece in the deck. It's also a lot easier to cast than Jace. So even though it's a little bit more worthless and a much more dead draw if you're not trying to exactly win the game on that turn, it's kind of, there's pros and cons. Labjace actually does stuff, at least if you can speak or read Japanese, and this one's a lot easier to cast. But again, our main win condition, the thing you should be trying to look to win the game with, is Glaring Fleshraker. We've got other versions, like I said, where there's tons of ways to win as long as you get your top. Commanders in the command zone, you've always got that. And then there's Ethereum Sculptor, Forensic Gadgeteer, Foundry Inspector, Fleshraker, Joyrus Familiar is another version of Foundry Inspector. It's a little bit different because you can cast historic spells for 1 less, and there are a couple of legendary creatures in the deck, I think. Well, for one, you can curve, maybe you ramp a little bit and you go turn 3 Joyrus Familiar into turn 4 Jellyfish Mom, and then you have a mana held up to protect or interact with the table. But also you can use Psy. Psy Master Thopterist is also a fill-in for these Ethereum Sculptor, Forensic Gadgeteer, Foundry Inspector, Glaring Fleshraker. So there's tons of these, right? And they just have good synergy with the deck because they're playing a tremendous number of artifacts, like a crazy number of artifacts in the deck. But this one says whenever you cast an artifact spell, and that includes your Sensei's Divining Top from on top of your deck, you make a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Now that is an artifact creature token, so you can tap that for a blue to cast your top off the top of your deck. This has a little bonus ability that you can pay 2 mana to sacrifice 2 artifacts and draw a card. And in this deck, that really will work like a value engine. All of these kind of artifact payoffs are going to work like value engines in this deck because we've got 27 artifacts in the artifact section, not to mention half of our creatures are artifacts. So you will be able to use this to just draw cards, and you are kind of a control deck when it comes down to it. So we've got value engines like, well, I mean, even our commander will draw cards and act as a moderate marginal value engine, card draw engine. But the reality chip, which also gives you a backup win condition if for some reason you don't have access to your commander, the reality chip does the same thing. It works as a little bit better value engine, but it doesn't give you the mana. And there's a kind of a specific bit of text that we're breaking with this card that I don't want to spoil just yet. But we've got, so in the value engine department, we've got Forensic Gadgeteer. In this deck, that's a great value engine. The reality chip in any deck is a great value engine. Master Thopterist is going to work like a value engine, and then all of your tutors to find these pieces, of course, are going to work like value engines. We've got some kind of lesser value engines in the artifact section. Eye of Vecna is a value engine. Collector's Vault's going to work like a value engine. That might be it for like actual, like real value engines. But I think it's plenty, especially when you mix in the fact that you're getting some bit of card advantage out of your command zone, and from the pieces that you're actively looking to tutor for anyway. So your win conditions are going to double as value engines, and so you never have to feel bad about spending a Drift of Phantasms to find a value engine. Like, a lot of times you have to decide early on, when you have a tutor but you don't have a clear, easy path to victory. You have to think, am I going to waste this tutor now, or am I going to spend this tutor now on a value engine, or do I want to get a combo piece with it? And in this deck, we're going to be able to do both, right? So if you've got your value engines are your combo pieces, put it that way. So Forensic Gadgeteer will be a combo piece that allows you to win the game, but also every time you cast an artifact, you're going to make a clue token that only costs 1 to crack, and so you're going to be able to draw a bunch of cards that way. Where was I? I was going to talk about the thing that I wasn't going to talk about. So I was building this deck. Do I need to go into the main combo line? I guess we've pretty well figured out the main combo line, right? We've also got Cloud Key. And if you're looking at this and thinking, do I really need all these? Maybe not. Maybe you actually could cut 1 or 2 of these more expensive cost reducers, like maybe cut the Cloud Key and the Joyrus Familiar, maybe, and squeeze a couple more pieces of good interaction. I don't know. I found that the deck was performing very well exactly as is. So this is my build of it, but of course this is my very first take. So we may end up cutting down the number of cost reducer or quasi cost reducers that we end up playing, but this will get you there. This will get you where you're trying to go for sure. Yeah, so I was building this deck, and I was really excited about the commander when I first saw it. And I was building it, and I kept talking to the people on the Discord, the Stomping Grounds Discord, and as excited as I was, I couldn't get past the fact that it just seemed to me when I was goldfishing that I would just be better off playing the reality chip as the commander. Now, the reality chip does not have the extra ability at the bottom here where it says artifacts you control have tap, add a blue, spend this mana just to cast spells from anywhere other than your hand, so usually from the top of your deck. But I felt like, because I've played with the reality chip in the command zone, and I felt like all things considered, I should just be playing the reality chip. And I sadly brought that into Discord, and I said, I think I'm going to scrap this project because I think the reality chip is just a little tiny bit better. And a guy in the Discord, I'm gonna put a comment in the comment section. We talked about a couple things, but there's maybe I'm just gonna find him right now. Let me pause you for a second. Well, I kind of give up. I thought I could find. There was a specific bit that I wanted to find, but this is however we pronounce that, Nero. He was trying to suggest a card that and he said, just do me this one favor. If you don't use the card, at least put it in the considering board and credit me with it. And I'm going to do one better. I'm actually putting him in the video. So in the considering board, what was it called? It's, damn. One more pause. The second I paused, I remembered. It's Genesis Chamber. There it is. So that's in the considering board. He thought that I had enough creatures that I could utilize this as another little engine. I don't think we need it, but now you all know that Nero suggested that. More importantly, and more to the topic, While I was talking about how I thought I was going to give up on Miminon, the right hand of the real jellyfish, so the OG jellyfish, I should say. Right when I was saying I was going to give up, he reminded me that this tap ability is the same kind of tap ability that Urza has, and more than that, because, that's a little bit obvious, but more important than that, he told me something I just straight up did not know. He let me know, because he was just building the Gruul Urza Miria, and he let me know that there were a couple of pieces that I now have access to in the budget world that I did not know that I had access to in budget world. Winter Orb apparently has been reprinted enough times that it's down to sub $8. And Static Orb, the better one probably, is only $3.28. I've been running Storage Matrix in my Urza budget build, but now I think these things are cheap enough that we can run all three of them in budget Urza. But once he reminded me that I could use the card this way and let me know that the price was down this low, all I had to do is take the Urza out of the deck. It was like $11, and that left enough space to let Mama Jellyfish do what Mommy Jellyfish do. This is why you would play, in my opinion. I mean, you don't have to reconfigure it. It's only 5 mana total. You get the little mana ability where artifacts you control can tap for mana. All of that matters. It's not totally inconsequential. I just thought on balance, the reality chip was better because it allows you to cast anything off the top of your deck, not just artifacts, which means you don't have to load your deck full of useless artifacts to get it to storm off once you get it reconfigured. But what we're going to do with this deck, now that I know the secret that Nero told me, is we're building it as a control stack. So that's what we're doing with the latest iteration of, however the hell you say that, I'm just going to call it Reality's Mama. So what Reality's Mama has become is it's become a combo deck, yes, a control deck, yes, but this is a proper stack, where we are going to put a Howling Mine in play. This is a value engine, not a stacks piece, but I alluded to it earlier, so I thought should come back to it. You can put your Howling Mine in play, and no, we're not group hugging. You can use your commander's tap for blue mana ability to turn the Howling Mine off after you have drawn your extra card for the turn. So that's a value engine too. More importantly, I think, we get to take advantage of Static Orb, Storage Matrix, and Winter Orb. And these are damning stacks effects. Now in CEDH proper, they're not as damning, but they're still pretty good. But in actual hundo, like $100 max budget competitive, these are effects that if you can get them in play and you can break parity on them, it is very difficult for you to lose those games. So you put your Winter Orb in play. It says no player may untap more than one land during his or her untap phase, except because of the original way mono artifacts worked, and this is a mono artifact, if you tap the Winter Orb before your untap, you can untap all of your things first and then untap the Winter Orb. So now it's untapped, so now it's affecting all of your opponents again. So basically you can play the Winter Orb and have it affect all of your opponents, but it doesn't have any effect on you. Same thing is true of Storage Matrix. Storage Matrix says as long as it's untapped, it says right on the card, as long as it's untapped, each player chooses artifact, creature, or land during his or her untap step. And then they can only untap those things. So that's pretty ugly, right? Static Orb just straight up says, as long as it's untapped, players can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap steps. That's brutal, right? So any one of these effects in play with your commander, and you are in a very good position. I don't want to say it outright wins you the game, but I think it's going to buy you enough time to assemble your combo, and you will end up winning the vast majority of those games. 3 ball, I just paused you to take a look at some prices. 3 ball is $24. We're not going to be able to use Trinisphere. Tangle Wire is another one you could put in the deck. So maybe if we cut the most expensive, this is just, some brewing in real time. Maybe if we cut the 4 mana version of this effect and we cut like the most expensive, I think that one was pretty, Cloud Key, $4. So we might be able to move the deck list around a little bit and get Tangle Wire. I think that would be brutal. Am I thinking of the right card here? Let me just pop this in the... Yeah. So this would be a freaking nasty piece in the deck too. But let's talk about what we did end up on and how it works out. I guess the nice thing is just having all of these cost-reducing effects is they're not at all dead. It's like they do stack up. So having a Foundry Inspector and a Joyous Familiar is hardly a bad thing. It's only your artifact spells, and if you've got your artifact spells cost reduced by 2, then most of your artifacts are free. Then you're casting them off the top of your deck and you're able to tap the artifacts to pay for the artifacts. I mean, it does make the whole thing run more smoothly. I guess I was just thinking from a combo player's perspective, we maybe don't quite need the density of, we've got the A plus B combo, we've only got the 1A, and we've got like a billion Bs. The C's in our command zone. But you know what? Maybe that's good because we've also got all of these artifact tutors. We've got like Dizzy Spell to find the Sensei's Divining Top, but there are other 1 mana cards that we could want to tutor for. We've got War of Invention. We've got Reshape. So I guess having the density of the cost-reducing or quasi-cost-reducing effects does allow us to basically always use our artifact tutors to find the Sensei's Divining Top, and then we'll have our cost reducer or quasi cost reducer. So basically with this deck, you've got enough interaction, removal, bounce spells, engines, that you're going to be able to stop your opponents from winning the game long enough to find your Sensei's Divining Top, and then once you find the Sensei's Divining Top, you're just kind of able to go off. But there's some cards in here that I feel like I maybe should explain. Obviously, since we are going to be like more or less a control stax deck, cards like Displacer Flute and Pithing Needle and Tormod's Crypt, some of these effects are going to look pretty obvious. But there's some effects that you wouldn't normally see in a competitive, even a budget competitive deck like Wayfarer's Bauble. But you have to think about the way it plays in the deck overall. So when you've got your commander out, you're able to use your commander's ability to play artifacts off the top of the deck. Well, the top of the deck may not always have an artifact on it. And so using Wayfarer's Bauble, first of all, you can only pay 1 mana to cast it. So you can tap any artifact with your commander and play this off the top of your deck. Then you can tap the Wayfarer's Bauble for 1 mana to cast your, Survivor's Med Kit off the top of the deck. But then also, if you get stopped, if you're in a spot where there just are not artifacts on top of your deck, you can use the Wayfarer's Bauble to, yes, put a land in play. So it's also ramp in the early game when you're trying to get your commander out, which is 5 mana. But it allows you to shuffle your deck. So there's a lot of effects. If you're looking at a card in the deck and you're not quite sure why it's there, think, what if I get stuck and there's not an artifact on top of my deck and I'm looking to try to go off or find my last piece to win the game, or find that important stacks piece? Then it might make sense why Ghoul Caller's Bell is in the deck. You can tap this, and you can ruin top deck tutors with this. It just says each player puts the top card of his or her library into their graveyard, but most of the time you're actually going to be using this on your own deck. You're using it on everybody's deck, but the purpose is for your deck. Survivor's Med Kit, same kind of thing. It's only 1 mana, and you can pay 1 and tap it to just draw a card. So if the top card of your library is a land, you can tap 1 mana, tap this, draw a card. Hopefully you'll find an artifact. So there's things like that. Soul Guide Lantern. Yes, we can use this as a stax piece. When it ETBs, you're going to exile a card from a graveyard, and you can tap it and sacrifice it to exile all of your opponent's graveyards. But also it has this tap a mana, tap it, sack the artifact, draw a card. So that's another way to kind of clear the top of the deck. Or Witching Well, which really, this is actually very good in this deck. When you're kind of trying to storm off, you're trying to cast as many cards as you can off the top of your deck using your commander. Hopefully you hit a run like Aether Spellbomb. Tap it to play the Survivor's Medkit. Tap a mana, draw the land, and reveal the Wayfarer's Bauble. Okay, well now we've got the Wayfarer's Bauble, but there's some counterspell on top. So we're going to pay 2, sacrifice it, shuffle. Oh, look at that. It's a Witching Well. We cast the Witching Well off the top. We scry 2. We set the top deck the way we want it. There's a Tormod's Crypt. I cast the Tormod's Crypt. You see where we're going? And then we can use the Tormod's Crypt as kind of free mana to cast the Thought Vessel that's on top. In fact, maybe that Thought Vessel only costs 1 to play because we've got a Foundry Inspector or a Cloud Key in play. So it's really a very cohesive package. And again, if there's cards that look a little bit strange at a glance, ask yourself, okay, if I were in a situation where I had my commander out and plenty of mana, but I don't have an artifact on top of my deck, does this card make sense in those terms? And in the case of Ash Barrens, it absolutely does. We don't get to play fetch lands, but we can play Ash Barrens, which is just an untapped mana source that taps for colorless. We're a 1-mana deck, no big deal. But also it does allow us to shuffle. And in Goldfishing, there's lots of times that have come up where you actually have multiple times where you can shuffle your deck in the same turn, which usually will let you run into something. I think that's kind of the basic idea of the deck. If we've got time, let's go into some Goldfishing. Or maybe I should talk about some of the pieces we haven't talked about. Did I kind of... Oh, hey, this one. Loyal Inventor. This was just built. This was printed for this deck exactly. It says when Loyal Inventor ETBs, search your library for any artifact card, reveal it, put it on the top of your deck. Shuffle first, and then put it on top of your deck. So that can obviously get you anything you need, but it can put the Sensei's Divining Top directly on top of your library, and you're ready to go. Just in general, your commander allows you to play off the top of your deck. So Loyal Inventor almost just becomes strictly better Tribute Mage, Trinket Mage, and whatever the other mage is. It kind of is just strictly better in this deck. I mean, if you've got your commander in play, it is strictly better. Or if you've got the reality chip in play, it is strictly better. And hopefully you'll have one of those two in play before you're ready to tutor for your Sensei's Divining Top. In fact, you will have. Maybe we do look at some hands. I mean, the rest of this is just kind of bounce spells that can also clear the top of your deck. And bounce spells that are broken if you're playing a deck that has a bunch of artifact creatures, and we are playing a deck that has a bunch of artifact creatures. We've got, of course, your budget suite of counter magic. An offer you can't refuse, Arcane Denial. Creatures matter in this quasi format. Mana Leak, Miscast, Dispel, Misdirection. So we've got the All-Stars. We're a High Tide deck. Our commander costs 5 mana, and we are sort of trying to win in a Storm Run type way some of the time, or a lot of the time. Not all the time. Really, most of the time you're just putting together your A plus B combo and winning the game. But there will be times when you're trying to go on a Storm Run to try to find one of your last pieces. And High Tide helps with that. Or there's going to be times when you go turn 2 Arcane, so you go turn 1 land, turn 2 Fellwar Stone, turn 3 land, and now you can tap your Fellwar Stone to cast your High Tide, and now your 2 islands tap, on turn 3, your 3 islands tap for 6 mana. And then you can just kind of go off and live your best life. We've got the Surprise and Scary. This is one of my favorite lands. I think this is criminally underplayed. This should be in almost every budget deck that's heavy blue, and maybe all, if not every, very nearly every mono blue budget deck. And I think it should be in a lot of low color blue decks, even in CDH. I play this in Malcolm Kettis CDH. Crystal Vein, kind of the same thing. $2.58, well worth it, especially if you've got a 5 mana commander that's going to just win the game for you, or lock the rest of your pod out so that you can kind of take your time in winning the game. So we do want to get our commander out quickly. How are we doing on time, speaking of quickly? Not great. Maybe didn't leave enough time for Goldfishing, but maybe we'll just take a look at some hands and just say whether those would be keeps. This one's tough because we I think this is a keep. I mean, we're going to be pretty sad if we don't hit our third land drop, but we've got Frantic Search, we've got the Everflowing Chalice, so on turn 2, at very worst, we can... No, this will get us there. In fact, you know what? I am going to just run this out. I'm just curious. Well, maybe we'll just do a hand. This isn't a good hand. I mean, it's a fine hand. I would definitely keep this on a second 7 or a 6 for sure. I don't know if you'd actually want to keep... In an event, in a tournament, I would not keep this on a first 7, but let's just see if I'm right or wrong about that. Okay, so draw a card, and it's not mana, but it's a mana-free counterspell, so that's pretty close. Uh-oh. We have not found land yet. That's bad. Oh, no, we didn't get there. But let's see. We could go Frantic Search, which is sort of sad because we don't have 3 lands. Frantic Search, we're going to draw 2. We found a Soul Ring. And then discard 2. We'll go 1. What pieces do we need? I mean, we don't need the Muddle and the Drift, so I guess we'll discard the Drift. And then we'll untap these. And then we'll consider. And we will obviously have to hit a land. Jeez, oh Pete's. Maybe we keep that and we go Soul Ring into Milliken. I really just want the land. Like, how many times can we miss? Got it. We got there. I never doubted it. And this is fine to have a colorless mana is totally fine in the deck. And Soul Ring and Collector's Vault. We got a sweat there, but I think this turned out okay. We're actually able to hold up counter magic against blue players, and we're easy going to cast our commander on turn 4, but we are holding up interaction, and we were holding up interaction on turn 3. And then I forget what this reads. Tap 2, draw a card, discard a card, create a treasure token. Yeah, that's really good in this deck. Because remember, those treasure tokens, we can tap them. We don't have to sack them. We can tap them to play things off the top of our deck. So we're control deck. We're definitely in control deck mode right now. So would we want to play our commander? I think probably so, just because we've got misdirection. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we need 2 blue. That does change the dynamics a little bit. Yeah, I guess. Now we're on turn 4 and we haven't hit a land drop again. I guess maybe that's what we could do. We could take out the Joyous Familiar for a land. I think I'm on 32. Maybe 33 is probably a better number. So we've got lots of interaction to hold up. So maybe what we'd want to do is just activate the Collector's Vault and see if we can hit our land drop. Let's do that. So we're going to draw a card. There it is. Discard a card. if we were playing against blue players, we'd keep this, and if we weren't, we'd discard it. So let's say we've got 2 blue players and a non-blue player in the pod, so we'll discard this. And we'll run out our land. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we've got the misdirection. Now we can look at our top deck, and then we can play artifacts off the top of the deck. Okay, go to next turn. Okay, so here we did hit our land drop, but we don't have an artifact on top. So look, like right now we could just be trying to play, look for our cost reducer, or we can just kind of decide that we're going to be a control player in this game. And maybe what we would do is just get the Winter Orb. We've got a transmute for 2. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4. Transmute this. Into Winter Orb. What the hell did I just do? Oh, I got it. Okay. And we have 1 mana floating. Play the Winter Orb. Shuffle. And now we've got an artifact that we can tap other artifacts to cast. So we can tap. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. So we could tap, play this, and tap, play this. And I think that's going to be where we have to end. So we're going to leave things end. But now this is important how you play the deck. So now I'm going to tap this to put a blue mana into my mana pool. I can only spend that on things that are on top of my deck, or not in my hand. But that's okay. We're just going to let that mana evaporate. But now when it goes to our opponent's turns, they're not going to be able to untap their lands, and they're not going to get their extra card draw. So this is kind of how we take control. This is us turning the corner for sure. Like if nobody's comboed off yet, and we've got our at least a misdirection, then probably this is a game where I'm starting to feel pretty good about it. So we go to our turn. Let's say maybe we did have to blow a piece of interaction. But the way we untap it untaps exactly like this. And then we draw an extra card for Howling Mine. Oops. And now we can use artifacts to cast artifacts. So we're going to tap our Howling Mine so that nobody else gets to use it. To use a blue mana to cast the med kit. And now we're going to use this to draw a card and discard a card and make a treasure. And we're going to tap the treasure and this, and there's nothing else fun to tap. We can just tap this and cast our Foundry Inspector. Alright, and now we can do a 1 mana Eye of Vecna. When it ETBs, we draw a card. Cool, so we've got the win on our next turn. We've got enough to hard cast the misdirection. We've hopefully got everybody locked down pretty good with the Winter Orb still. I feel like, it depends on how things went, but this is a game we definitely could have won. If it gets back around to us, we're going to make sure that we tap the Winter Orb before our untap, and then we're going to untap. And we drew our combo piece, and we're going to draw for our Howling Mine. And we're going to pay 2 mana to draw a card with the Eye of Vecna. No, in fact, we're not, because we can just play off the top of our deck. So we will tap the Howling Mine and the Foundry Inspector to cast the Ethereum Sculptor. Now all of our artifacts cost 2 less mana to cast, but we're just going to win anyway. So we play land for turn, go 1, 2, maybe we improvise, maybe we don't, doesn't really matter. We'll improvise with this treasure token. 3, and we will search for Sensei's Divining Top. Okay, and that comes into play on it comes right into the battlefield when you were of invention it into play. Okay, now we've won the game. So we've got probably, if we would have cast things more wise, we probably could have hard cast the misdirection and the spell pierce. Let's see, we've got, yeah, I mean, because we would have been able to tap that instead of this. And instead of that, we could have tapped that. No, that doesn't help. That to improvise our Whir of Invention. So let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, it doesn't matter. We have plenty of mana anyway. To cast the misdirection, we can hard cast the misdirection and the spell pierce, no problem. Doesn't matter, even if we would have kept it tapped the way it was tapped. Okay, so now, how do we win? We are going to tap Sensei's Divining Top to draw a card, and we are going to put Sensei's Divining Top on top of our library. Now, our commander says we can cast artifacts from the top of our library. Ethereum Sculptor or Foundry Inspector alone would cost reduce this to 0 mana. So we can cast this for 0 mana, and we can tap it to draw a card and put it on top of our library and cast it from the top, tap it, draw, cast it from the top, tap it, draw, so on and so forth. And we can, while we're going through this little run, we will occasionally have an artifact on top that we will be able to cast for 2 less than its normal mana value. So we're going to be able to put all these artifacts into play for free or cheap. And then we'll draw into our High Tide. We can cast our High Tide. Do we have a blue? No. Okay, so we can, well, here, right here. We'll cast this for free off the top of our library because we have 2 cost reducers and it's 2 mana. And assuming this is able to produce blue, which we did say there were blue players in the pod, tap that for a blue mana, cast High Tide. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana in islands. And we can just kind of keep going. Cast that for free. Cast that for free. Draw that. Draw that. Draw that. Draw that. Cast that. Not quite for free. This would still cost 2 mana. So we just have to tap a couple of artifacts to cast that. Yeah. Okay, and now our stuff is reduced by 3. So all these things are going to come into play basically for free. And we'll be doing it at a clip where we're going to be able to basically cast all of our artifacts for free. So we're going to have tons and tons of mana and value. But basically we're going to deck ourselves out. And then we're going to cast our Laboratory Maniac. Or, which mage did we find? The 1 mana one. We'll go until, well, here, we can put this guy in play. And now we can just cast all of our stuff from the top of our library. So now we have the option to either cast a thing from the top or play artifacts for 3 less mana. We can tap our artifacts. Now it's 4 less mana. So yeah, everything's basically free. We've got all of our cards, we've got all of the mana, we've got everything we need to win the game. Eventually we're just going to cast either Laboratory Maniac and then try to Sensei's Divining Top, draw a card from an empty library, or Laboratory Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, is it? Activate that, try to draw off an empty library, or if at some point we can bump... Oh, I'm drawing off my graveyard. That's not what you're supposed to do. Or at some point we are going to come to our Fleshraker, or a tutor to find the Fleshraker, and we'll just burn everybody out that way. So those are the... Well, that's how the deck plays. Now that was not a great hand, and it wasn't a fast run, but this isn't a fast deck. It can be. It can storm off. It can go crazy. Usually it's going to be a control deck, a stax deck. You're looking to drag the game into deep water and drown your opponents with your superior play skill and my superior deck building. And you see how these cost reducers do stack up, and it does matter. So I'm not saying that you definitely would want to go down cost reducers. I guess the more you want to lean into just being a find my combo and win deck, the more you might want to get rid of the cost reducers. Maybe you could find another tutor or two, or put some more interaction in, some more stax pieces. There's the Phyrexian guy that I wanted to add. I can't think of his name. He's 2 mana Phyrexian something. It's kind of like a pithing needle with legs. But there's ways to take the deck. But this build, it'll work for you. It's been doing really good in Goldfishing, and now you've basically seen everything it can do, other than the cool Fleshraker loops, but I guess that just wasn't in the cards for today. I think that's going to do it, guys. This is a pretty good opener, too. More win yeah, no, this is a pretty good opener. But, you know, I do think we want to go to 33 lands. All right, that's enough. Word to your collective mother. Word to your brother. Word to yourself. Word to me. That's who we don't... I feel like we don't pay enough homage to me. All right. Word to your mothers. Words to your brothers. Words to your fathers. Words. East side until the day that I die on the west side. Basically, more than anything, what I mean to say to you, and I mean this from the bottom of my cold, dead, blackened heart, is namaste, bitches. Namaste.